On September 28, 2019, outdoor trail hikers camping and overlanding went to explore in Vicksburg, Mississippi. One of the places that we explored was the National Military Park. Within the park is a ironclad gunboat called the U.S.S. Cairo, and there is a museum right there with the gunboat. It was one of 7 shallow draft C class river ironclads. The U.S.S. Cairo was commissioned in January of 1862, named after towns along the upper Mississippi and Ohio rivers. The 7 formidable city-class gunboats prowled the Mississippi River and connecting shallow waterways, menacing Confederate supply lines and shore batteries. The Cairo's career was short, seeing limited action in battles at Plum Point, Tennessee, also known as the Battle of Fort Pillow, in May of 1862, and Memphis, Tennessee, in June of 1862. The Cairo's skipper, Lieutenant Commander Thomas O. Selfridge, Jr., was an aggressive and skilled captain. On the cold morning of December 12, 1862, Selfridge led a small flotilla of gunboats into the hazardous confines of the Yazoo River. Tasked with destroying Confederate batteries and clearing the river of underwater mines, the flotilla inched its way up the murky waters. As the Cairo reached a point 7 miles north of Vicksburg, the flotilla came under fire, and the aggressive Selfridge ordered his guns to be ready and called for full steam, bringing the ironclads into action. Seconds later, disaster struck. Cairo was rocked by 2 explosions in quick succession. The first tore a gaping hole into the port bow of the wooden-hulled ironclad. The second detonated a moment later near the armored belt amidships on the starboard side. The hole in the bow proved to be catastrophic. As the doomed ironclad took on water, Selfridge ordered the Cairo to be beached and the crew to abandon ship. Within 12 minutes, the Cairo slid from the riverbank into 6 fathoms, which is 36 feet, of water without any loss of life. Over the years, the gunboat was forgotten, and her resting place was slowly covered by a shroud of silt and mud, in which her priceless artifacts were preserved in a largely oxygen-free environment. Her whereabouts became the matter of speculations as members of the crew had died and local residents were unsure of the location. As the centennial of the Civil War approached, Edwin C. Bears, historian at Vicksburg National Military Park, was able to plot the approximate site of the wreck. Using a pocket compass and probes, Bears and 2 companions, Don Jacks and Warren Grabeau, set out to solve the mystery. By 1956, they were reasonably convinced they had found the Cairo, but 3 years lapsed before divers brought up an armored port cover confirming the find. A heavy accumulation of mud, a swift current, and near zero visibility deterred the divers as they explored the submerged gunboat. Local enthusiasm and interest began to grow in 1960 with the recovery of the pilot house, an 8-inch smoothbore cannon with its wooden carriage and other artifacts. Following financial support from the state of Mississippi, the Warren County Board of Supervisors, and funds raised locally, efforts to salvage the gunboat began in earnest. Hopes of lifting the ironclad and her cargo of artifacts intact were crushed on October of 1964 when the 3-inch steel lifting cables cut deeply into the Cairo's fragile wooden hull. A decision was made to recover the Cairo in 3 sections. By the end of December 1964, the remains were put on barges and towed to Vicksburg. In the summer of 1965, the Cairo was again loaded on 2 barges and towed to Ingalls Shipyard in Pascagoula, Mississippi. There, the armor was removed, cleaned, and stored. The 2 steam engines were taken apart, cleaned, and reassembled. Sections of the hull were braced internally, and a sprinkler system was operated continually to keep the white oak timbers from warping or checking. Nevertheless, it was here, exposed to the elements and hurricanes, that the Cairo began to deteriorate in earnest. In 1972, the United States Congress enacted legislation authorizing the National Park Service to accept title to the Cairo and reassemble the remnants for display and preservation in Vicksburg's National Military Park. Delays in funding halted progress until June of 1977, when the Cairo was returned to the park and partially reconstructed on a concrete foundation near the Vicksburg National Cemetery. The recovery of artifacts from the Cairo revealed a treasure trove of weapons, munitions, naval stores, and personal property that helped tell the story of the sailors that once called the ship home. The gunboat and its artifacts now can be seen along the tour road at the USS Cairo Museum. The USS Cairo was one of the first American ironclad warships built at the beginning of the U.S. Civil War. Cairo was the lead ship of the City-class gunboats and named the Cairo, Illinois. In June of 1862, she captured the Confederate garrison of Fort Pillow on the Mississippi, enabling Union forces to occupy Memphis. As part of the Yazoo Pass expedition, she was sunk on the 12th of December of 1862 while clearing mines for the attack of Haines Bluff. Cairo was the first ship ever to be sunk by a mine remotely detonated by hand. Cairo was built by James Eads and Company, Mound City, Illinois, in 1861. Under contract to the United States Department of War, she was commissioned as part of the Union Army's Western Gunboat Flotilla, which had U.S. Navy Lieutenant James M. Pritchett in command. Cairo served with the Army's Western Gunboat Flotilla on the Mississippi and Ohio rivers and their tributaries until she was transferred to the Navy on October 1st of 1862 with the other river gunboats. She was commanded by Flag Officer Andrew Hull Forte. Active in the occupation of Clarksville, Tennessee in February 17th of 1862 and of Nashville, Tennessee, February 25th, Cairo stood down the river on April 12th, escorting mortar boats to begin the lengthy operations against Fort Pillow. An engagement with Confederate gunboats at Plum Point Bend on May 11th marked a series of blockading and bombardment activities which culminated into the abandonment of the fort by its defenders on June 4th. On June 6th of 1862, 2 days later, Cairo joined in the triumph of 7 Union ships and a tug over 8 Confederate gunboats off Memphis. 5 of the opposing gunboats were sunk or run ashore during this action. 2 were seriously damaged and 1 managed to escape. That night, Union forces occupied the city. Cairo returned to patrol on Mississippi until November 21st, when she joined the Yazoo Pass expedition. On December 12, 1862, while clearing mines from the river, preparatory to the attack on Haines Bluff, Cairo struck a torpedo, or a naval mine, detonated by volunteers hidden behind the riverbank and sank in 12 minutes. There were no casualties. Like many of the Mississippi Theatre ironclads, Cairo had her armament changed over the life of the vessel. To speed up her entrance into service, Cairo and the other City-class ships were fitted with whatever weapons were on hand, then had their weapons upgraded as new pieces were made available. Though the 8-inch 200mm smoothbore Dahlgren guns were fairly modern, most of the other original weapons were antiquated, such as the 32-pounders, or modified, such as the 42-pounder rifles. These were old smoothbores that had been made into rifles. The 42-pounder weapons were of particular concern to military commanders because they were structurally weaker and more prone to exploding than purpose-built rifled cannons. Additionally, the close confines of combat on the rivers greatly increased the threat of boarding parties. The 12-pounder howitzer was equipped to address that concern and was not used in regular combat. I hope you enjoyed this short video about the USS Cairo gunboat. There are other videos on our channel about this military park, so be sure to check those out. They're full of information and awesome sights. Thanks for watching our videos. Please subscribe to our channel. Don't forget to hit the bell notification so you're notified when we put new videos up and you don't miss anything. Be sure to give us a thumbs up if you liked, and if you didn't like it, go ahead and give us a thumbs down. We appreciate y'all watching our videos and subscribing. Thank you.